This is Chancellor Zabanda with the news. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. President Chakwera hopes improved capacity to local fertilizer production could be best exit strategy for AIP. A grouping of environmentalists and Malawi Parliamentary Conservation Caucus call for the halting of the Kenyatta Drive expansion works. A Malawi-Britain partnership aimed at fighting serious corruption leads to first arrest. In sports, firm to maintain McNebert Kazua and Andrew Chikosi as interim coaches for senior national women's team. Please stay with us for details on these and more. President Lazarus Chakwera says unless there is heavy boost to local fertilizer production, it will not be that easy to withdraw the Affordable Inputs Program AIP. The president was speaking during the opening of the Liwonde Fertilizer Terminal for Malawi Fertilizer Company at Liwonde in Machinga. He said government currently invests a lot of money on AIP because most of the raw materials for the inputs are imported.
According to President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, the fertilizer terminal and blending plant, which is the first of its kind in Malawi, will go a long way to complement government efforts to improve agricultural productivity. President Chakwera said the plant is expected to increase farmers' access to high-quality and affordable inputs. Chakwera believes that the plant will also act as an exit strategy for the Affordable Input Program, AIP. Speaking earlier, Minister of Agriculture Robin Lowe said government will not bow down to suppliers offering exorbitant fertilizer prices, arguing that they would rather use ADMAC and Smallholder Farmers Fertilizer Revolving Fund of Malawi. Malawi Fertilizer Company Chief Executive Officer Christos Yanax said the fertilizer terminal has a storage capacity of 40,000 metric tons, bagging capacity of 10 million bags per year, and is connected to the deep sea port of Nakara via a railway line. For ZBS, this is Rafael Mlozo reporting.
Environmental rights activists have called upon President Lazarus Chakwera to lobby for financing for climate change adaptation at the World Climate Change Summit scheduled to start on October 31 in Scotland. The activists Dorothy Tembo and Julius Ngoma says the trip should be an opportunity for Malawi to find solutions to address effects of climate change on the country. Alnafi Mulambas filed this report.
Environmental experts think President Chakwera's participation at World Climate Change Summit this month end is an opportunity for Malawi to push for climate change solutions. One of the experts, Dorothy Tembo, says Malawi should make use of the conference to find solutions to the perennial effects of climate change for Malawi.
At the moment, we do not have enough funding for climate change-related activities, and most of the populations are suffering because of the effects themselves that the developing countries contributing highly compared to the African countries, including Malawi itself. So he has to make a case, and I'm sure that all the ministries and departments and agencies that are taking part in the COP have given him enough information in terms of what we need as a country, and also what we have done so far to showcase that we are capable in terms of using the funds, but also that we need more funds to implement different activities.
Another expert, Julius Ngoma, says the $100 billion pledge towards cushioning climate change from developed countries will offer an opportunity for Chakwera to push for financial support.
We expect that our president, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, is going to be very vocal on issues to do with climate finance, so that the developed countries can be able to support countries like Malawi with climate finance, which is easily accessible, adequate, but also predictable.
World Climate Change Summit in Scotland will run from 31st October to 12 November 2021. The summit aims at detecting global solutions in dealing with climate change.
And still on the environment, a grouping of environmentalists, Movement for Environmental Action, and the Malawi Parliamentary Conservation Caucus is pushing for the halting of the Kenyatta Drive expansion work, alleging that commencement of the project did not respect some laws. Led by Chair of the Parliamentary Caucus, Werani Chirenga, the group is pointing at the Environmental Management Act of 2017, which demands a transparent environmental social impact assessment as one of the clauses that were botched, citing those contents of a report on the assessment were not made public as it is expected prior to commencement of groundworks. Chimwemwe Padata reports.
The group Movement for Environmental Action, led by Malawi Parliamentary Conservation Caucus, is alleging that the Kenyatta Drive expansion project commenced without approval of the Environmental and Social Impact Assessment, which has been described as an anomaly. Chairperson for the caucus, Welani Jirenga, says this is a breach of the Environmental Management Act of 2017 and has since called for an immediate suspension of all groundworks. In an ideal situation, according to Jirenga, the Act calls for a transparent process in the handling of the Environmental and Social Impact Assessment with all stakeholders. In the current state, the group says the project is not certified.
We make laws at Parliament and we expect that those laws must be implemented. There is no unapproved ESHA report for the road in discussion as we are speaking right now. So we are calling on MEPA to make sure that what they did with a project in Mangochi, where Southern Region Water Board was doing a project without the proper procedures, they stopped the project and fined them 4 million kwacha. So we are requesting them not to apply the law selectively. The fact that this crime has been committed by a government department should not make them go scot-free. They should make sure that they should face the consequences. Otherwise, after submitting the ESHA report, we would be very happy to see the construction of the road, because continuing without a proper ESHA report will mean that we are not serious as a country, we are disregarding our own laws.
The group has since announced of unspecified action if their demands are not respected, but the Roads Authority, which was initially threatened of court action over the concerns, admitted that the project commenced in the absence of a transparent environmental and social impact assessment. This is Chimwemwe Padata for Zodiac.
First Lady Monica Chakwera has expressed concern over continued vulnerability of the girl child in Malawi in view of increased sexual exploitation, early marriages and gender-based violence. Madam Chakwera said it was sad that Malawi is ranked 12th in the world for early marriages and gender-based violence. Latoya Kadamanja has filed this report.
The First Lady, Monica Chakwera, was however pleased that women are now able to support themselves as well as their families in view of existing interventions. Madam Chakwera said empowering women has proven to be effective, and as such, she was pleased to see how women are able to support themselves and their families. Malawi is focused on eliminating gender-based violence and early marriages, and the event yesterday was used to rejuvenate stakeholders to stay the course if they are to win the fight. UN Resident Coordinator Maria Jose Torres observed that climate change, poverty and hunger are some of the contributing factors to early marriages, hence the need to invest more in girls. Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare Minister Patricia Gagliardi said in playing her part, government has established safe homes in various parts of the country where it offers rehabilitation services for victims of sexual exploitation and gender-based violence. About 38% of girls and women in Malawi experience gender-based violence, and between April and November 2020, Malawi registered 13,000 child marriages, while 40,000 girls got pregnant.
A Malawi-Britain partnership aimed at fighting serious corruption has led to first arrest under the partnership. It is the arrest of a Malawian-born businessman Zuneth Sattar and 5 accomplices by British authorities in the past week. In the UK, Sattar faces a number of charges, including offering bribes to Malawian public officers. He is one of the major suppliers to the Malawi government through a fleet of several companies trading under Ocean Limited. Sources say anti-corruption authorities do not have cases yet against Sattar, despite being under investigation in Malawi since 2012. But the ACB is cooperating with UK National Crimes Agency, which already has cases and made the arrest days ago. You're watching the news here on Zodiac. We'll be back with more.
Sompenya amalawi watoto kula malawi Malawi 2063 akale wozimira baeka kufika 2063 akale wokomera aliyense achinyamata tigwirane manja tukula Malawi achinyamata tikale patsogolo tukula Malawi wozimira baeka Malawi wokomera aliyense Malawi 2063 kusinda dziko lathu mokomera aliyense.
Mipando ya sofa, dining set, mabedi, coffee table zisamakhale ngati zolandira kuli kufanana ayi. Ku Davina Furnishers amapanga mipando, masofa set, dining set mmene inuyo eni yake mukufunira, podziwa kuti anthufe timakhala nkukonda kosiyanasiyana. Awuzeni a Davina Furnishers akupangireni zinthu zolongosoka, anthu ena asirire. Davina Furnishers ili pafupi ndi Gateway Mall, kungoloka msewu wochokera ku Mchinji roundabout ku Lilongwe. Ino amaloji, mahotel ndi onse okonda zinthu zabwino, chitani telefoni ku nambala iyi: Davina Furnishers 0999 002 707.
Welcome back. A look at the headlines as we proceed. President Chakwera hopes improved capacity to local fertilizer production could be best exit strategy for AIP. A grouping of environmentalists and Malawi Parliamentary Conservation Caucus call for the halting of the Kenyatta Drive expansion works. A Malawi-Britain partnership aimed at fighting serious corruption leads to first arrest. And in sports, firm to maintain McNerbert Kazua and Andrew Chikosi as interim coaches for senior national women's team. Now, moving on with the news, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa says its focus is ensuring that countries enjoy the African continent free trade area. The Commission's Director for Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa, Eunice Kamwendo, says, for example, they have so far worked with 3 countries on implementation strategies. She said this in Blantyre Tuesday during the ad hoc expert group meeting, which is discussing a report on agriculture value chain and opportunities from the free trade area. Haben Jalamano has filed this report from Blantyre.
Director of the United Nations Economic Commission for Southern African Sub-Regional Office, Eunice Kamwendo, says they recognize the importance of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Kamwendo feels the free trade area is a real opportunity for the member states to industrialize, but also ensure that small and medium enterprises within the region are taking advantage of it. She said this in Blantyre on Tuesday during an ad hoc expert group meeting where they discussed agriculture value chain in relation to opportunities from the free trade area.
We are very focused and heavily invested in making sure that member states move beyond the ratification. We've worked with 3 member states so far, Malawi, Zimbabwe and Zambia, in making sure that they have implementation strategies after the ratification. And that's one process that we will continue to engage in and invest.
Lethabel Maluke from the Intergovernmental Committee of Senior Officials and Experts of Southern Africa highlighted how vital agriculture sector is to the continental development. She said this, for example, from 2010 to 2018, Malawi created the highest agriculture employment at 85% in the region, followed by Mozambique at 75% and Madagascar at 73%. The meeting is a curtain raiser for the 27th session of the Intergovernmental Committee of Senior Officials and Experts for Southern Africa from Wednesday to Thursday this week in Blantyre.
The Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority, MERA, has admitted there was little it could have done to avoid an increase in fuel prices following the exhaustion of the Price Stabilization Fund. The fund is government's main mechanism for avoiding effects of external shocks on local fuel prices, but MERA CEO Henry Kajaja has told reporters in Lilongwe that it could not avoid the recent hike as the fund had been used up. He says actually MERA is in debt with suppliers in excess of over 30 billion kwacha. Here is Chimwe Padata with more.
MERA CEO Henry Kajaja has repeated the fuel price hike was inevitable. Kajaja told reporters the institution has used all revenue it generated through the Price Stabilization Fund, thus it was unable to prevent the hike of fuel prices. Kajaja says MERA owes importers close to 30.6 billion kwacha as the body incurred under recoveries of close to 75.4 billion kwacha. But Kajaja said the body only managed to source 44.7 billion kwacha, pegging the shortfall at 30.6 billion kwacha owed to local importers. The Price Stabilization Fund is a mechanism used by MERA to avoid external shocks on local fuel prices that are ignited as a result of a spike of prices on the international market. As it is, prices have gone up on the international market and MERA has responded to the same. During the briefing, Minister of Information Gospel Kazango reiterated to Malawians not to panic, as he says government is taking stern measures to cushion them from shocks sparked by the fuel prices hike. Kazango also asked transporters who have now doubled their fares, mainly minibus operators, from taking advantage of the current situation. This is Chimwemwe Parata for Zodiac.
Let's now move on to sports. The Football Association of Malawi has decided to maintain McNevert Kazua and Andrew Chikosi as interim coaches for the senior national women's team until a permanent coach is hired. Kazua, whose contract expired in May, and Chikosi guided the Scorchers to their first ever final appearance during the just-ended COSAFA Championship in South Africa. But a football expert says Kazua and Chikosi have demonstrated their capabilities and should therefore be considered for the jobs permanently. Sambanda reports.
Somba Banda says the technical subcommittee conducted 2 rounds of interviews for the yet-to-be-named permanent new head coach for the Scorchers, but Kazua and Chikosi will be maintained as caretaker coaches due to limited time, as the process of recruiting the new coach may take a while. Kazua, who has been in the national women football team setup for the past 5 years, is out of contract since May and was assigned the role of trainer during the just-ended COSAFA Senior Women Championship in South Africa, whilst Chikosi, who has also been with the team for some time and manages Lilongwe-based DD Sunshine, was made temporary head coach. The Scorchers are expected to play rivals Zambia over 2 legs in the 2023 African Women Cup of Nations qualifiers this month end, and Somba Banda says Kazua and Chikosi will still run the show.
As you are aware, we cannot finish that recruitment process in just a day or two. So basically, the caretaker panel of Mr. Kazua and Mr. Chikosi will continue. The caretaker coaches will proceed up until the permanent coach is recruited.
But football analyst George Kaudzamasina says by guiding the Scorchers to the final of the regional showpiece for the first time in history, Kazua and Chikosi have demonstrated their capabilities and deserve to be hired permanently.
The whole idea of hiring a coach is to get results. Kazua and Chikosi have proved themselves under difficult circumstances. We don't need an expatriate. We don't need anything from anyone from outside. Let us give it to the mantle as they have proved themselves to be worthy.
Meanwhile, the Scorchers regroup next week to start preparations for the 2023 African Women Cup of Nations qualifiers against Zambia this month end.
And that's about what we had time for in this news edition. But before we go, a look at the headlines. President Chakwera hopes improved capacity to local fertilizer production could be best exit strategy for AIP. A grouping of environmentalists and Malawi Parliamentary Conservation Caucus call for the halting of the Kenyatta Drive expansion works. A Malawi-Britain partnership aimed at fighting serious corruption leads to first arrest. In sports, firm to maintain Macnobert Kazua and Andrew Chikosi as interim coaches for senior national women's team. Visit our website, zodiacmalawi.com, for more news. My name is Chancellor Zabanda. Thanks for watching.